Have you ever wondered how a book and a cross could reshape a continent? The story of Christian missionaries in Africa is far more complex than a simple tale of salvation. It's a story of transformation, of give and take, of progress and loss. And it begins on the sun-drenched coasts of a vibrant, diverse continent. Imagine the scene. Majestic European ships anchor offshore, and small boats ferry determined men and women to the land. They carry Bibles, medical supplies, and a conviction that they are bringing light into darkness. The local communities watch, a mix of curiosity and caution in their eyes. Who are these strangers, and what do they want? This initial contact was the first ripple in a wave of change that would soon sweep across Africa, leaving nothing untouched. It was a meeting of worlds, a moment pregnant with both promise and peril, the beginning of a double-edged legacy. The impact of the missionaries spread like wildfire, and it was a fire that both illuminated and consumed. On one hand, they became builders. Where there were none, schools rose, offering the keys to literacy and a Western education. Children who had only known oral traditions began to read, write, and calculate, opening doors to a world they never knew existed. Hospitals and clinics were established, introducing modern medicine that saved countless lives from diseases and infections. Missionaries brought new agricultural techniques, promising better harvests and food security. These were tangible, life-altering improvements. They offered a new path, a new way of understanding the world. Many embraced this new faith and the opportunities that came with it, seeing it as a genuine path to a better life, both spiritually and materially. But there was another side to this story, a shadow that lengthened as the sun of Western influence rose higher. The very presence of missionaries often acted as the vanguard for colonial powers. There was a disturbingly cozy relationship between the church and the state. As colonial administrators arrived to draw lines on maps and impose new laws, missionaries were often their cultural interpreters and allies. The message of salvation was frequently entangled with the message of submission to a new earthly authority. The schools that taught reading and writing also taught that African traditions were pagan, that their spiritual beliefs were superstition, and that their social structures were uncivilized. The vibrant tapestry of local cultures began to fray. Traditional ceremonies were condemned. Ancestral languages were discouraged in favor of English or French, and ancient art forms were dismissed as primitive. It was a systematic dismantling of identity, a cultural erosion that left a deep and lasting wound. The double-edged sword was cutting deep, bringing medicine for the body but often a poison for the soul of a culture. And then, something remarkable happened, a turning point. The very tools of the colonizer became the weapons of the liberator. The Africans who had been educated in the missionary schools, who had mastered the languages of their rulers and read their books on philosophy, law, and theology, started to see a glaring contradiction. They read about liberty, fraternity, and equality. They read in the Bible that all are equal in the eyes of God. And then they looked around at the reality of colonial oppression, at the segregation, the exploitation, and the disrespect. A new consciousness was born. The classroom, intended to create compliant subjects, had instead forged the leaders of a revolution. Secret meetings were held in the back rooms of shops and under the cover of darkness. The educated elite began to organize, writing pamphlets, forming political parties, and articulating a powerful demand for self-determination using the very concepts of freedom and justice they had learned from the West. This intellectual rebellion also sparked a spiritual one. Many Africans felt a growing disconnect with the European-led churches, which often seemed to side with the colonial regime and dismiss African identity. In response, a powerful movement of independent African churches began to emerge. These new spiritual homes didn't reject Christianity outright. Instead, they reimagined it. They blended Christian theology with African traditions, creating a faith that felt authentic and empowering. They incorporated traditional music, dance, and a deep respect for ancestors into their worship. These churches were more than just places of prayer. They were centers of cultural resistance and community organizing. They provided a space where Africans could be both Christian and truly African, reclaiming their spiritual autonomy and laying the groundwork for the political independence that would follow. The seeds planted by the missionaries were now bearing fruit they had never intended to grow. So what is the legacy of the missionaries in Africa today? It's as vast and varied as the continent itself. Drive through any major African city, and you will see the towering spires of cathedrals and the vibrant energy of Pentecostal megachurches. Christianity is a dominant and dynamic force, shaping daily life, politics, and culture for millions. The schools and hospitals founded by those early pioneers have grown into major national institutions, forming the bedrock of the educational and healthcare systems in many countries. The literacy and knowledge they introduced undeniably helped pave the way for modern development and global integration. You cannot deny the positive contributions that have empowered generations, but you also cannot ignore the cost. The echoes of cultural loss still resonate. There's an ongoing effort across the continent to rediscover and reclaim pre-colonial traditions, languages, and spiritual practices that were suppressed. The political and social structures imposed during that era have left deep scars, contributing to some of the conflicts and challenges modern African nations face today. The story is not simple. The missionary was not just a hero or a villain. They were catalysts in a complex chemical reaction that transformed a continent forever. To understand modern Africa, we must look at this history with open eyes, acknowledging the good, the bad, and the profoundly complicated legacy they left behind. It's a story that continues to unfold, written every day in the lives of a billion people on a continent defined by its resilience, its faith, and its unending journey of self-definition. Thank you for watching. If you found this exploration insightful, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that shaped our world.